Well, I posed you a question there a moment or two ago. Do you know what an organisation called DEED is all about? Well, I'm pleased to say that Louise Boston Mama is joining me now. Good morning to you, Louise.
Morning.
Yeah, I hope that you had your battle storming gear on this morning, fighting through all this weather. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It is unbelievable. I just about made it through the storm and the wind and the rain and the dark. Now the clocks have changed. It's even worse, isn't it?
Tell me about it. I tell you. So, Louise, DEED, I must say that several people talked to me about your organisation, but up until them talking to me about it, I'd never heard of it. Tell us, first of all, what is DEED?
DEED is an educational charity. We're local, so we cover Dorset, we cover Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. And really, we were set up, we've been running for years. We've been running for over 20 years. And we were really set up to help people understand about the wider world, about their connections with different people and different places, how their community was changing and how the world was changing and how they could make the world a better place, really. So we talk about fairness, we talk about justice, we talk about the environment, we talk about equality, we talk about children's rights. So we have that all as part of the work we do, and we work with loads of different people in the community.
And of course, you used to be just East Dorset. Now, of course, now it's the whole of Dorset, whatever. But a very small, how many folk are in your team?
So we're a very small team. There are 3 of us, all part-time, but we do work with a range of volunteers, our fantastic board of trustees, and we have consultants that we work with in the community that we work with when we do all sorts of different projects that we get funded by a whole range of different funders.
Now, obviously, today in the news, it's all about immigrants coming in and crossing the channel, and it's all doom and gloom. And then, of course, the conditions that they meet here. Are these the sorts, because obviously all of these things very highly charged emotionally, and I guess that people can very quickly get into camps. Are those the sorts of things that you're called in to help educate with?
It's really interesting that you mentioned that, because only just a couple of weeks ago I was working with Mudderford Junior School just down the road in Christchurch, and they really understand that. They really feel that their children that they work with just get the doom and gloom picture, and they called us in really to work and do a workshop about refugee role models, because often what gets lost in the news is the human story. And what we do with the children and young people, we talk about the human story behind refugees, and we get them to look at and find out about all the different people who've come, all that were refugees, their personal story, and actually when they came here, how they were supported and helped, and actually how they made a huge difference, such as Marks from Marks and Spencer's. You know, there's a lot of people around who come from awful circumstances, come here, find a home here, and then want to give back to this country and want to employ people, start businesses, represent the country in international sports, and give back. And that's what we really want to tell to and help the young people and children to learn. So it was a fantastic, and the children at Mudderford, they asked me, just year 4s, you know, they're only 8 or 9.
So what sort of questions did they ask you?
And they asked me all sorts of questions about who these people are and why are they here, and what made them come here, and how old they were when they came here, and what did they do, and where were their mums and dads. You know, some of it is actually quite poignant and heartbreaking, because you think, why did their mums and dads not come with them? And why did they come with strangers? And we're told not to go with strangers, but some of them end up going. So it's all like the personal story, and they're very, very open to it. And that's why we love working with children and young people, really, because at that stage they're really open. They get a lot of things on the news and they get a lot of information, but the school is there almost like a facilitator to give them information from all sorts of different sources. So from me, from Newsround, from whatever they find out, and just to build their own picture. But I think what we really pride ourselves on at DEED is telling the human story, and that crosses a lot of our work that we do.
And I suppose really all of us as children should have been educated in that way. What have been the most difficult situations that you've had to deal with? You know, I mean, obviously as people get older, sometimes they can get a little bit hardened and, dare I say, become quite prejudiced. You know, there's a lot of that around. Now, I'd like to think that in multicultural Britain there's less of that, but we know that's not always the case. For you, what's been the most difficult?
I think one of the projects we did was an interfaith project, and we took a team of people from different faiths: Jewish faith, Muslim faith, Buddhist, Anglican, and a humanist, and we took them into schools really to talk through prejudices, to talk through and have young people, older this time, ask them about questions. And it was really interesting because a lot of people come with preconceived ideas of what it might mean to be Jewish or what it might mean to be Muslim, and that you could see them by having these conversations breaking those prejudices down. So you have this era of hope in primary school and everyone's really open, and then you start getting these things starting to set in when they get older. And when you talk in secondaries, often it is a little bit about challenging what they're getting on their phones, what the social media is telling them, what other people are telling them, and actually talking to real people about what it means to be these things and to challenge those stereotypes, that they're not all terrorists, that they're not all this and that and the other, is really, really important. And that has been quite challenging, but we found ways of having, conversations to try and safely talk through where that all comes from, really.
So do you think that the children in that case who were cross-examining the people from the different faith backgrounds and so on were themselves the challengers, asking those questions?
I think they were, and I think they enjoyed being in that position, because often they get told information, but actually they were being really active and asking quite challenging questions to a lot of our community faith representatives, and they almost had to sort of justify what they were feeling, what their beliefs said, how they behaved, and I think that empowered them, really. I think they enjoyed that process of having that.
Of course, there can be a lot of fear, can't there? And I guess with fear, insecurity. You can be comfortable in your own skin and in your beliefs.
Yeah.
But I guess it's quite sad, isn't it, where you can't encounter people who have totally different beliefs maybe to yourself. And I suppose that whole idea of understanding and tolerance, even though you're not embracing, and that's precious in society, isn't it?
It certainly is, and trying to find the similarities as people, and that's another message that we try and send out, is that we are all one race, we are all just part of the human race, and we have such similarities. Whether you're coming on a boat across the channel, you still love your family, you still want to make the world a better place, you still want safety and home, and there's lots of things between us all that we do share, and it's trying to remind people of that, really, and that we are, however different we are, faith or looking or experience in life, our values, what matters to us is still very similar as people.
Let's have your first piece of music, which is Hanging on a String. Why this one?
Well, I chose this because I have a love of British soul music, and my family came to this country back in the 70s, so we've been here quite a long time. And so this song came out in the 80s, and this was my really first encounter with British soul music rather than American soul music, and the song and the style, they were really positive influence in a young black woman's life, really. So this is what I thought I would share with people.
So long for you to come to me. What did I do wrong? It's all a mystery to me. Baby, I feel it too. What am I supposed to do? Maybe I just changed. Could I be wrong for you? You got me hanging on the string now. waiting, contemplating. Come on, child, take me by my hand.
Hanging on a String there from Loose Ends. My very special guest today is Louise Boston Mama. And if you're wondering, that's a strange name. Well, of course, your family come originally from Sierra Leone.
Yes, that's right.
But Mum was born in this country?
Yes, Mum is from Leeds up in Yorkshire. But my father's side of the family are from Freetown, Sierra Leone. So yes, I'm mixed heritage, and that's a very common experience for a lot of people, especially around in this parts. And one thing we do talk about is how common it is for people to meet and to move and to go from one place and to go to the other place and then to settle. So my family history is a bit all over the place. We have a sister that lives in Holland. So, my other sister lives here. So we are quite an international family.
You've got a good excuse to be a globetrotter, Louise.
Exactly.
You go visit the world.
Absolutely.
Although having said that, you did say that obviously the society that we live in, multicultural Britain now, is a real blend of nationalities and cultures and so on. Do you think Britain has taken well to that environment, or are we still learning?
I think everyone's still learning, isn't it? You go through phases, don't you? It is interesting. You think, we're always getting better. We're always getting better. So we're always learning. We're always progressing. But actually, we've sort of learned that really in this last few years that things go in cycles almost, and things go up and down. And I think world events affect things. So, when something happens overseas or when something happens abroad, and that we feel it at home, whether for the good or for the bad, and it has repercussions around how people feel. So you can have ups and downs in relationships, and ups and downs with communities that might be sort of, vilified a little bit because of something that's happened. And we have to try and reconcile that with actually that's not everybody who looks like that or believes in that is that type of person. And that's a lot of the message that we give out when we talk to schools, is that not everybody is that person. It becomes like a stereotype or a label, and actually we're more than that.
So we're being manipulated to a certain degree by media and about what we're reading and so on. Obviously, very tragically over the weekend, we saw those terrible events coming out of Seoul, Korea, and then also, of course, then in India, with the collapse of the suspension bridge. But there's something, and even, of course, Ukraine, but these things, of course, do connect us, and sadly through tragedy, but actually, isn't it interesting how people rise up whenever they see the pain in other people from other countries?
Absolutely, and that it's really important to have that sort of empathy with other people and to empathise with other people's situations, even though you haven't experienced it yourself. That's another thing that we encourage people to learn about, is to have empathy empathy with other people's situations so that they can understand why things happen, and they can understand why people are sad, or they can understand why people move, or they can understand, why people's attitudes are from where they have what they've been through, and that's really important. And Britain has a lot of communities from around the world living here, like in India or in South Korea, or when disasters happen in Ukraine, and the people locally have that connection. We build an empathy with what they are feeling, because they might have family that's been directly affected by what's going on.
Well, of course, even with Ukraine, obviously just Castle Point is just a stone throw from where we are at the moment, but of course they have a huge warehouse which actually can't contain the amount of goods coming from the generosity of people, who are identifying with that particular, challenge in the world. You've got a small team, and you've got lots of projects. How do you know what projects to come up with?
It's incredible, really. We work, although we're small, there's me, there's my colleague Sarah Wise, and she's really interested in the environment and the community and about getting us to look after our planet more. And then we have Abby, who holds us all together by holding the office together, holding all our sort of admin together, and we've worked together for years, and between us and the people that we work with, there's always a project that needs doing. In a way, there's always something we could think of.
And they're twiddling your thumbs then, Louise.
We're never twiddling our thumbs. There's always work to be done.
Now, obviously, all of this work, and very essential work, takes money, it takes resources. How does it come your way? Do people do they pay you for coming into schools and so on?
Yes, so I mean it's incredibly heartwarming that schools will actually pay us for the work that we do. If we can, we get project funding so that we can offer our services free or subsidised to people. So the project will pay, and we can offer, because we understand that schools don't have the budget, the organisations don't have the budget. So people can pay, and Russell Coates has just paid to have our Dorset's Hidden Histories exhibition up for the whole of Black History Month, and that's absolutely fantastic. But for schools and other organisations which find it a struggle, we do try and get project funding in, and that is hard work, and you have to go to a whole variety of funders. We used to have quite solid funders, really, but they change and they go, and we used to have EU as a funder, and it goes, and the circumstances and the politics around what we do changes so much. The council used to fund us, but that goes, things change all the time, so we are constantly looking for funding from different sources.
And of course, although the funding's up and down, the need ironically increases, doesn't it?
Yes, and again, in this sort of up and down, it can increase not sort of exponentially, or it can not just be steady, it can be really up, like, when the Ukraine crisis, it can suddenly explode. Cost of living crisis suddenly explodes, that this sudden need is there as well. So, it's difficult to manage it, but that's what we know, what's what we spend our time doing, really.
Now, you're obviously very passionate about all that you do, and it covers a whole range of things. Is there one particular thing that really gets you going? You said your colleague is very much into green things, and ecology. I was thinking of Prince Charles, because there was a television program and saying, you remember everybody thought he was a bit of a fruitcake.
Yeah.
And, of course, now they don't think that, do they?
Yeah, absolutely. No, she's very keen on that sort of thing. And my passion project, I suppose, is Black History, and we've just come off the back of Black History Month, and we do a lot of work at Deed around Black history and Black heritage in Dorset, and keeping it really local. We often find it sort of becomes like an American story, but we want people to find out their own local connection to Black history, and about celebrating people who've lived here, not just recently, not even just from the 70s like we were, but way back, a couple of 100 years back, the Victorians that were here, the Edwardians that were here, and to understand that actually people have been here for much longer than maybe we think they have.
So you're a bit of a historian as well?
I am a bit of a historian. That is my definite passion, absolutely.
I suppose the thing is, are we learning, Louise? Many mistakes in the past. And of course, there has been a lot of angry people around, haven't we? We've seen all the pulling down of statues and the slave trade, all the stuff that we've seen on our television. But of course, often a lot of this comes out of very real pain, doesn't it? And injustice.
Absolutely. And it does. And that's why people get frustrated and they get angry. And it comes from sort of trying to do things the right way, trying to petition, trying to, put it to put it to their local MP and trying to campaign and trying to do peaceful but sometimes it can overspread because people are so frustrated. And I think we are learning, but maybe how we think we traditionally learn is changing. We learn in so many different ways these days, and I think we are lifelong learners now. It's not just school's job to learn. And we can learn whenever.
We've got access via the internet, via radio and television, multiple channels. I mean, there's no... And it's interesting, isn't it, that with all of that, we're still a bit ignorant, aren't we?
Absolutely, because partly it's about you and being open to learning. And I think if we can all open our minds and our hearts to learning, we can change.
Well, Louise, thanks so much. Don't be a stranger.
I won't be.
You have to come and tell some of those stories, about the people that you encounter.
We'd love to.
Now, your final piece of music is Green and Gold. Why this one?
Oh, this is lovely. So I did an old piece of sort of old 80s soul music, but this was new soul music, and I really love Leanne LaHavis's voice, and me and my daughter went to go and see them just at O2 Academy in Bournemouth, and her voice is so beautiful, so I really want to celebrate old and new British soul music.
today.